Okay, I'm sharing my screen now. Can you see everything okay, Erica?
Yeah. I'm seeing the first slide says, what is Power BI Premium, and all your contact info.
All right, great, thank you. Just want to make sure the screen sharing was working. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending today's webinar, and thank you for Pragmatic Works for hosting this, and thank you for our MC, Erica, for doing a great job in the polls and the introduction. Today we're talking about what is Power BI Premium. So if you've been paying attention to the Power BI world and some of the announcements that have been coming out over the past couple of weeks, you've probably heard a lot about Power BI, specifically Power BI Premium and the big announcements around that. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what is Power BI Premium and what can you expect from this new add-on for Power BI. My name is Dustin Ryan. I'm a data platform solution architect with Microsoft, and I work on our education team. So we have a team that specifically handles all of our education customers, and so I work in the East Coast with all of our K-12 school districts and higher ed institutions and help them how to figure out what to do with their data, and specifically around SQL Server and Azure, and of course spend a lot of time talking about Power BI as the new cutting edge reporting and analytics tool introduced by Microsoft. Prior to my role at Microsoft, I was a BI consultant, believe it or not, at Pragmatic Works, and so I spent more than 7 years as a BI consultant designing data warehouses and ETL solutions and analysis service solutions and lots of reporting services reports. Also an author, a blogger, and a speaker, and so I've spoken at events like SQL Saturday. We've got a great event coming up here in Jacksonville, Florida in the next few months, SQL Saturday in Jacksonville, so if you happen to be in the area, I'd encourage you to check that out. But I love speaking at SQL Saturday events. There's a couple of books down there at the bottom that I had the pleasure of working on, and I'm also an avid collector of dolls, and so I love to collect dolls. There's my my basement with all of my favorite dolls. My wife, she won't go in the basement for some reason, and she keeps the door locked at night. But that's enough about me. Today we're going to be talking about what is Power BI Premium. We're going to talk about the benefits of Power BI Premium. And what does Power BI Premium do? What kind of additional features and capabilities does Power BI Premium offer? We're going to talk a little bit about Power BI landscape and where Power BI Premium sort of sits as far as Microsoft's BI offering. And then and also talk about what kind of customers is Microsoft targeting with the Power BI Premium offering. And then we're gonna spend a few minutes also talking about the future of Power BI Premium. What does that roadmap look like, and what kind of additional features can you expect to see coming out over the next little while related to Power BI Premium? All right, got a big warning slide here. And the reason for this is because this Power BI Premium was just announced on May 3rd, so it's only been around for not even 3 weeks, or the announcement has only been made about 3 weeks ago. And so, of course, this technology has not yet been released, and so what that means for us is that all the features and the capabilities that we're talking about could change, might not happen at all. There might be additional features, and the bottom line is we really don't know much of anything definitively until Power BI Premium is made generally available, which will happen sometime in June, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And so that just means that what we're talking about is about software that hasn't been released, and so there's really no warranties or anything about what I'm going to say here. So let's start off with Power BI Premium. Power BI Premium is an add-on for the Power BI service. And so if you're brand new to Power BI, and hopefully most everybody in here has heard of Power BI prior to this presentation, Power BI is Microsoft's cloud-based analytics and reporting tool. And so what that means is that Power BI is a service that runs in Azure, and that means that Microsoft takes care of all the hardware, all the networking, we keep all the servers up and running, we keep all the software up and running. And what that means for our customers is that you just bring your data. You bring your data, you bring your reports and your visualizations, and then you give people access to that. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that, and we're not going to go into that in great detail here, but Power BI Premium is an add-on for that cloud-based analytics and reporting service, Power BI. And Power BI Premium basically allows you to have your own private server running in the Power BI architecture in Azure. Now, to understand why that's important, it helps to understand the existing architecture for Power BI. So currently, Power BI runs on a cluster of machines that all the Power BI customers use. And so because of that, Power BI places restrictions on how much capacity you can have and what resources that an individual can use up. And the reason that Microsoft does that is so that we can sort of limit or prevent an individual user from having a really negative experience with Power BI. And so that's why you have limits around how much capacity you have within a workspace. If you have Pro license, you get 10 gig in your workspace or 10 gig in a shared group workspace. And you have a limit on how many data refreshes you can have per day, those sorts of things. And so put those restrictions on the Power BI service so that way we can kind of limit customers having a really negative experience. With Power BI Premium, that all changes. With Power BI Premium, the capacity, all of the capacity becomes yours. Because the capacity of Power BI Premium services belong to you, this allows many of these restrictions and limitations of the Power BI service to be lifted, which gives you a lot more control over how your resources are dedicated to the different users that you happen to be serving with Power BI. So as opposed to having just a single cluster for many, many different customers running their Power BI workloads on it, with Power BI Premium, a customer can have their own dedicated Power BI environment with dedicated hardware. With the Power BI Premium, it's basically your own premium. You get your own private Power BI server, and you have a lot of flexibility over how those resources are used. With Power BI Premium, the resources are dedicated to your organization. So this allows you to deliver Power BI content to your organization without having to license every single individual user. Also, since the resources are dedicated to your organization, this removes the requirement to license every single user that may need access to certain Power BI content. And what this gives you is it gives you read access to it for a much larger group of users than before. So with Power BI Premium, you can roll out Power BI content to as many users as the capacity you've purchased can handle. Currently, the way that the licensing works for Power BI, and we're going to talk about this here. Let's use this as an example, okay? Okay, so let's say that you work for an organization that has a requirement to distribute Power BI reports and dashboards to your entire organization. Or maybe not your entire organization, but at least a large number of members of your organization. Prior to Power BI Premium, you would need to purchase a Power BI Pro license for your development team. Those are the guys on the left side. They've all got the little white P on them that signifies that they have a Pro license. So you need to give them a Pro license because some of the capabilities that the Pro license gives you is the ability to share content with other users. That's a Pro feature, so you need the Pro subscription in order to have that capability. So we know the developers need that, right? Now, the people on the right, the blue people, with the little white P on them, they would also need the Pro license. And the people on the right, even though they are not the developers, they still are consuming shared content within the Power BI service. Thus, they need a Power BI Pro license. Now, this can make life difficult for you if you're a really large organization, because what that means is that if you have 30,000 users that need access to BI and reporting, that means that each of those individual 30,000 users would need to be licensed. And what we're talking about here is the traditional Power BI per user licensing that exists today. But with Power BI Premium, this changes. With Power BI Premium, you now have the flexibility to deploy our Power BI data sources or our data sets, reports, and dashboards to premium capacity. Now remember, we talked about Power Premium allows us to have dedicated capacity, our own Power BI environment with no other customers leveraging that environment. With premium capacity, we can deploy our reports and our dashboards to our premium capacity, and what that would mean is that our end users would no longer need to be licensed because they're hitting our premium capacity. They don't need to be licensed. They can be, or they don't need to have the Pro license. Rather, they can be the free users and have read access to that report, to those reports, those dashboards, and those data sets. Another example would be if you had a SharePoint Online site and you had some Power BI content embedded within your SharePoint Online site. the users that log into the SharePoint online site, they could view those Power BI reports for free if they were free users, and that Power BI content was deployed onto the premium capacity. Now, one of the new features that has was announced, I think it's been a couple of months ago, and this is not necessarily only a premium feature, but it does play a role with Power BI Premium, and so that's why we're going to talk about it. This new feature is called Power BI Apps, and if your company is currently using Power BI, or you've been playing around with it on your own, you probably have seen some of the changes that have happened in the Power BI portal. But Power BI apps let you bundle up your Power BI content, your data sets, your reports, your dashboards, and then you can share that content within your organization. Now, this kind of sounds a lot like some of the functionality that you've already seen before in group workspaces, but group workspaces are basically being rebranded, and they'll be now known as app workspaces. And there's going to be some differences between the old group workspaces and the new app workspaces, but going forward, the collaboration environments are going to be called app workspaces. And the app workspaces are where we can publish our Power BI content. We can bundle that up in Power BI app, and basically those app workspaces will now become our containers for all of our collaboration materials, our reports, our dashboards. But the apps become a way for us to publish content to our entire organization. Now, we can control the members of the group of that particular app workspace. So, just like you normally would do with the group workspaces, you can add members to it, you can add administrators to it, you can add people who can work within that group, such as users who may be creating reports or editing reports or administrating that workspace. And so you can still do all of those same sort of things, but this app workspace becomes a way for us to publish apps to the organization. And we can also separately control who has access to those apps. So you have users that can have access to the app workspace, just like you normally would do with the group workspaces, and then you can control who has access to the app workspace. Now, the app workspaces are different than the group workspaces. Prior to the app workspace update, the app workspaces will not create a corresponding entity in Office 365 like the group workspaces do today. And so what this would let you do is create any number of app workspaces without you having to worry about the number of different Office 365 groups that are being created behind the scenes or under the covers. Also today, you can only add individual members and admins to your group workspace. But in the next iteration, you're going to be able to add multiple AD security groups or modern groups to these your app workspace lists for a lot easier management. Now, what the app workspaces let you do is create apps that you can easily update and publish to your organization. This sounds a lot like content packs, but the content packs are going to be deprecated, and they're going to be replaced by app workspaces. And so that's not going to happen right away, but the content packs are being deprecated. So if your company currently uses the content packs, start migrating towards the apps, because the plan going forward is going to be the apps, or app workspaces, and the apps. And the reason we're talking about the apps is because the apps will be the preferred method of distributing premium content to all of your free users without having to have per user licensing. So if you're in the situation where you need to roll out Power BI content to a large number of users within your organization, and what I mean by large is more than just a few hundred, we're talking about thousands or tens of thousands. Power BI Premium is going to be the way to go with using Power BI apps to roll out that content. Okay. Now, I've got a brief demo here to kind of show you the app workspaces. How do you create the app workspaces? How do you give people access to them? And then how do you publish your app? So we're going to step on over to that. Okay. All right. So I've got my Power BI portal here on my screen, and you'll notice here that I've got a group workspace. or previously known as a group workspace. Now it's called an app workspace, and it's called student success data. So I told you I work in education, so all of my examples are, or most of my examples are student success and education related. But you'll notice that in this group workspace or app workspace, I have to catch myself there, we have data sets, we've got an Excel pivot table workbook, we've got a report, and we've got a dashboard. Okay. Now I've already set this up, but the way that you create the app workspaces is very similar to what you would do with the group workspaces. So I would expand my list of workspaces here, and you'll notice down here at the bottom I've got a little button here that says Create App Workspace, and so that's what I'm going to click, Create App Workspace, and then I can give my app workspace a name, just like you would do with the old group workspaces. You can set up the permissions here. Should this be a public workspace or a private? If I set it as private, only approved people that I add can see what's inside. And then you can set up the permissions level as well. Should that be edit permissions or read-only permissions there. And then I can come in here and I can add in the workspace members. So who should have access to this? To be in this app workspace. Now, one thing that I'll show you here is if I click this little advanced button here, you'll notice that I've got a little slider bar here that says, should this be premium? And I don't have any premium capacity available to me at this moment, but once I do, when I flip this little switch, what that means is that this workspace will be deployed onto the premium capacity. So it's not going to be a workspace that is on shared capacity with other Power BI customers. This allows me to indicate that I want this workspace to be created on my own dedicated Power BI premium capacity. Okay, so that's how that's going to work there. Now I'm not actually going to create this group because I've already got this one created here, but it does include a dashboard, a report, a workbook, and a data set. Now I've got the app workspace. How do I actually publish the app? Well, you notice up here in the top right, I've got a little button there that says Publish App. So let's publish our app. I can give it a little bit of a color branding. I can give it some sort of description here that would indicate to the users, what is included in this content. I can see the content that is included in this group workspace or app workspace. Now, one thing I'll point out here is that you'll notice that, like when you created content packs before, how you could check, what was part of that content pack. This app has a one-to-one relationship with this app workspace, and that means that whatever content is in this app workspace would also be part of this app. So if you have content, and if you want to put content in this app workspace that should not be deployed as part of the app, then you would need to put that in a different workspace. Okay. I can specify the landing page, so we want maybe the dashboard to be the first thing that comes up as part of the landing page. And now we can set up our access. Who should have access to this content? So I'm just going to put in myself here, and I'm not going to share this with anybody else. But you would put in the list of users here, and then down the line you'll be able to add security groups or the modern groups here to roll this out to a larger group of users. But whoever I enter in here is going to have access to the app. That doesn't mean that they're going to have access to the app workspace. They're going to have access to the app, which means this content that is deployed in that app workspace. So once I've done that, I can click Finish. Let's click Publish, and we're off to the races. Okay. Now this will take just a second, but once it finishes, you'll see here that I've got a link, and I can give people, I can just email the link out to the people that I want to share this with, and so they'll have access to it. So that's fine. Or I can go to the app, and that will open it up for me as well. Okay. So it'll take a second here to redirect. And just bear with me one moment. Okay, and so what it's actually doing now is it's actually downloading the content for this app, and it's saying, hey, do you want to add this app? And I want. So I'm going to click Add, and now I can see that this in my little apps section here, I can see my app Student Success Data. And so I've got my dashboard here, and I can navigate through it just like you normally would with your existing Power BI content. I can click on the tiles and drill down, and then ask questions of my data by interacting with it. I can click the View Content button up in the top right, and I can see that content there. There's my dashboard, report, workbook, and the data set as well. Now what the apps allow me to do is it also allows me to push out Power BI content when I'm ready to update this app. So let's go back to our student success data workspace, our app workspace. And let's say we're ready to make an update. So I'm going to go to my dashboard here, and I'm just going to move some stuff around here just to create an update. All right. There we go. We've made a change here. We've moved our dashboard around. And so what we can do now is if I go back to my app workspace, I've made a change to the dashboard. I need to click Publish App again. And when I click Publish App, come on now. All right. Well, for some reason it doesn't seem to be responding here, but what I would do here is I would click Publish App, and what that would do is it would take me to that app screen again, and then what I would do then is click Update the app, and very similar to what you did with the content packs, that will allow you to roll out those updates. The app workspace sort of becomes a staging environment here for my Power BI content, and then once I'm ready to update my Power BI content, I can click the Publish app and we'll be off to the races again. Okay, back to the slides. Okay, now with Power BI Premium, the Power BI resources are dedicated to your organization, and so this allows performance and scale to be fully controlled by your administrator. So your resources are 100% dedicated to your particular Power BI instance. And because of that, it gives you, a control over the performance and the scale, greater control, and it also gives you higher limits on your data model sizes. And so you'll see some changes being announced for what exactly can you do with Power BI Premium, but you're going to have the ability to publish data models with larger sizes. Right now you're limited to 10 gig. That number is going to go up. You're also going to have the ability to schedule refreshes more frequently. And so I think initially they've announced that you're going to be able to schedule 48 refreshes per day. You're going to have increased limits on storage for all of your Power BI capacity, and there's going to be some more updates coming around as well. Now, at launch, there's going to be 3 different capacity levels for Power BI Premium, and they've announced that in the white paper, which I've got a link to at the end of the resources here. You've got 3 different capacity nodes: P1, P2, and P3. And that's related to 8 vCores, 16 vCores, and 32 vCores. And so you can see the back-end cores information there related to the different capacity nodes. There's also a Power BI Premium calculator. So if you're curious about, well, what capacity do I need? How does that translate into, I've got 20,000 users at, such and such company. How do I, how much capacity do I actually need? There's a little calculator that I've got linked to here in the presentation that you can use to sort of get a general ballpark idea of how much capacity would Microsoft suggest you at least start with. Now, Power BI Premium is available in the different node configurations for different capacities, and what that means is that those different node configurations are also related to different costs. The Power BI Premium nodes can be used for a PaaS implementation of Power BI. And so if you're familiar with Power BI Embedded, which was a service that ran in Azure, that allowed you to set up a Power BI, basically like a Power BI platform for you to design your Power BI application, and for custom application or on your website or whatever. But Power BI Premium nodes can be used for your PaaS implementations or Power BI Embedded, or your SaaS deployments, right? Logging into the Power BI portal through your web browser or through Office 365. once you've purchased a Power BI Premium node or some capacity level, this also gives you the right to deploy Power BI Report Server on premises. Now, Power BI Report Server is a new product that Microsoft is releasing, and it basically is a superset of SQL Server reporting services features plus the ability to deploy Power BI reports into a reporting services-like environment. So when you purchase Power BI Premium, you also automatically gain the flexibility to install Power BI Report Server on premises on an equivalent number of cores within your organization's firewall. Now, Power BI Report Server is a separate install from SQL Server Reporting Services, but like I said, it gives you all of the features of reporting services plus the ability to publish your Power BI reports on premises. So you get to deploy, your traditional reporting services paginated reports, the new SQL 2016 KPIs. You publish your shared data sets, your shared data sources, plus your Power BI reports. Power BI Report Server gives you the flexibility to keep your reports on premises and then deploy to the cloud at your own pace. Now, Power BI in the cloud offers you the full modern capabilities of Power BI. You get the dashboards, you get the apps, you get the Q&A, you get the tight integration with the other cloud technology, etc. And so I think it's important to point out here that Power BI Report Server it's not Power BI running on premises, right? It just is, it's more like reporting services running on premises, but I can deploy Power BI reports to the reporting server instance and then have users interact with my reporting services content, but also the new Power BI reports. Power BI reports deployed to Power BI reporting services can also be deployed to the cloud. And so what this means is that you develop one set of Power BI reports using the Power BI desktop tool. You can publish it to the Power BI report server, or you can decide maybe I want to publish this up into the cloud and take advantage of larger capacity up there, for instance. Because Power BI Report Server is not part of the traditional SQL Server installation like reporting services has been, Power BI Report Server is developed and released separately from SQL Server and at an increased cadence. So some of the feedback that the product team has received from the community is a more aggressive release and development cadence, and they're responding to that by releasing Power BI Report Server separately. And so that way they can make updates to it and add new features to it. And I don't think it's going to be as aggressive as it is with Power BI Desktop and the Power BI Cloud service, but it is going to be an increased development cadence. But the important thing to know with Power BI Report Server is really just reporting services under the covers, plus the ability to have Power BI reports deployed into the report server environment. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can get Power BI Report Server. The first one, we already talked about this, was you purchase Power BI Premium, right? You go and say, you buy some capacity, you buy your dedicated capacity via Power BI Premium, and this allows you to also deploy Power BI Report Server on-prem on an equivalent number of cores on premises. And so you buy Power BI Premium, you automatically get the rights to deploy Power BI Report Server. The other way that you can deploy Power BI Report Server is purchase SQL Server Enterprise Edition with software assurance. And so if you're an organization that is not currently using Power BI and it's not in your roadmap to go to Power BI in the cloud, but you are using SQL Server Enterprise Edition with software assurance, maybe something like Power BI Report Server would give you the latest and greatest capabilities that the Power BI reports have to offer. All right, now let's take a look at Power BI Report Server. Okay. Now, I've got, to get the Power BI Report Server up and running, I've got a blog here where I've got a little video that talks about how you install and configure the Power BI Report Server preview. It was just announced in preview last week. I think it was on the 17th. And so you can download the preview for free and install it somewhere so that way you become familiar with the new capabilities that Power BI Report Server offers. And I've got a little video here on my blog, sqldusty.com, that you can take a look at. And got some questions, some of the things that we're talking about during this presentation. But the Report Server preview was announced on the Power BI team blog, and you can download it from here. And then once you download it, you install it, and then you have to configure it. Now, we talked about how Power BI Report Server is reporting services underneath with Power BI Report abilities or hosting abilities. And so you set it up very similar to how you set up reporting services. You have to specify, what SQL Server database do you want to use to contain the metadata for all of your reports. And so you do need a SQL Server database engine instance that you can connect to store the reporting services database. Now, if you're interested in knowing how to do all of that, you can check the blog out and watch the video, but we don't have time to go through that today. I've already set up the Power BI Report Server here, and you'll notice that it looks really, really similar to the SQL Server 2016 Report Server, right? It just said I've got the default branding, and so it says Power BI Report Server here up at the top. And it really is just reporting services, except the difference now is that I can publish my Power BI reports to the Power BI Report Server. One of the things that you'll also have to download is the Power BI Desktop for Report Server. And so you can see up here at the top, it says Power BI Desktop for Report Server. And I've already created this, this nifty little dashboard here, or report, that's based on some absence data. And so we've got, you guys are all familiar with this probably, you're already familiar with Power BI Desktop. But the data source for this is a live query connection to a SQL Server Analysis Services tabular model. And so currently at preview, the only data sources that are supported are going to be SQL Server Analysis Services tabular models and multidimensional models. But the Power BI engineering team has said that they're going to be increasing this to include other data sources as well, other database engines and other types of data sources. At least at this time of the preview, you're pretty much stuck with using SQL Server Analysis Services. Now, once I'm ready to deploy this to my Power BI Report Server, all I have to do is go to File up at the top, go to Save As, and you'll see here I have an option for Power BI Report Server. Okay. I've already added my report server in here, so you can see the link here for that. If you were adding in a new report server, you could just type in the URL address for your Power BI report server. But I'm just going to click OK. I'm just going to use this one here. And you'll see all of the different folders that exist on your Power BI report server. Now, in this particular case, I just have the one, but I'm going to deploy this here into this folder and then click OK. All right, I've already deployed it, so it's just going to ask me to overwrite that. And so it does a deploy, looks very similar to when you publish Power BI content into the Power BI service, but looks like we're done. So I'm going to come back here to my browser. Let's go back into the folder here. And you see here that I've got a couple of Power BI reports here. One other thing that I'll also point out here is that in this particular server that I've got set up, I don't have any paginated reports deployed yet. I don't have any KPIs. I don't have any paginated reports. I don't have any mobile reports or data sources or data sets or any of those types of things. And so those things aren't listed here. But if they were, you would see the paginated reports listed here. You would see all of those things just like you normally do in SQL Server reporting services. But when I click on this, this opens up the report. And you'll notice here that I've got a Power BI report running directly within the browser. Okay, and it's interactive. It's a live connection, just like it was if you were using Power BI in the cloud. So pretty cool. All right, back to the slides. All right. There's also some changes coming around Power BI Embedded. If you're familiar with the old Power BI Embedded service in Azure, basically Power BI Embedded allowed a customer to deploy Power BI reports to the Power BI Embedded service and then integrate those Power BI reports within their custom applications without having to license the users that are accessing those applications or those websites or however that Power BI content is being deployed. Well, going forward, Power BI Embedded will now be part of Power BI Premium. Power BI Embedded allows you to create your custom applications with those Power BI assets that are deployed onto your Power BI Premium dedicated capacity. If you guys remember the pricing for Power BI Premium, and I've got a screenshot down there in the bottom right of the slide that shows the Power BI Embedded service in Azure. Power BI Embedded, the pricing was based on the number of sessions, which made it difficult to predict what your cost would be for embedding Power BI content in whatever type of application where you are creating. With Power BI Premium, the costing is going to be much easier to estimate because you know how much capacity you're going to purchase. And so this gives you predictable pricing for your Power BI embedded applications. This also gives you scalable performance for your cloud app solutions as well. Because now when we have, maybe you work in a seasonal industry, and there's certain times of years, times of year where you have a lot more usage of your application or of your website and your Power BI, and thus your Power BI assets. Power BI Premium would give you the flexibility to scale that up during times of increased usage if you're a seasonal business, and then scale down when that time is over. And so the embedded functionality of Power BI Premium allows you to expand the reach of your data by allowing you to deliver your Power BI reports and analytics to the users of your applications. So when we're talking about Power BI Premium analytics, Power BI Premium is basically converging Power BI embedded with the Power BI service. And this gives you that unified platform for both your SaaS and your PaaS applications. One of the other really nice things that it does for our developer friends is it gives us one API surface and a consistent set of capabilities. So you're no longer having to manage your Power BI SaaS implementation, your Power BI service running in the cloud that your users are accessing through your browser, separately from how you would manage your Power BI capabilities that are deployed in Power BI Premium, or I'm sorry, Power BI Embedded. Power BI Embedded becoming part of Power BI Premium gives us one API surface, one consistent capabilities, one consistent set of capabilities, and also one place to manage all of that. It's going to be in the licensing for the Power BI Embedded is based on whatever you're doing for Power BI Premium. So it's going to be sold based on there's also going to be a smaller node for embedded deployment at a lower price per month. Information will be released about that, and it's going to be purchased via the Office portal at GA, which will be sometime in the future. Okay. All right. This is going to be different than traditional Power BI embedded. Talked about this a little as I mentioned here, but I just want to call some of these things out. Power BI Embedded, you see on the left there, you purchased it in Azure, it was metered on the volume of your sessions, and you are billed based on the session volume usage. Really hard to estimate cost. In the future, Power BI Embedded is going to be converging with Power BI Premium, and it's going to be sold based on that Power BI capacity. So let's say you're designing a custom Power BI application that's going to run within your web browser. Okay. In the old world, you'd go spin up a Power BI Embedded instance, and then you would deploy your content through the APIs, and then you would be billed on your sessions, the volume of sessions. In the future, you'll go and purchase your Power BI Premium capacity. You'll deploy your Power BI content into an app workspace that is on your premium capacity, and then you build your apps that would leverage that content. The estimates around costing and licensing are going to be much easier to calculate and much easier to understand. All right, understanding the Power BI landscape. So let's, before we jump into the future, let's talk about what does the Power BI landscape look like today. Most of you are probably already familiar with this, right? You've got Power BI Desktop, right, which is the authoring and publishing tool that runs on your local machine, right? And so many of you probably already have Power BI Desktop downloaded. You can go download it today for free, whether you're a Microsoft customer or not. But you click you go to powerbi.com, go to products, you go to Power BI Desktop, you click the download button, and you get Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop is the authoring tool that runs locally on your development machine. It allows you to connect to a whole bunch of data sources. You can do data preparation, so you can do cleansing and massaging of the data through the query editor. You can do mashup. You can connect to different data sources and bring those data sources together. And of course, you can do the report creation and exploration of your data. You have that capability with Power BI Desktop. You also have the Power BI Free. Power BI Free, it gives you the ability to publish Power BI content into the Power BI service running in Azure. It has small capacity limits and less data refresh rates, or a smaller amount of data refreshes refreshing capability, but it does give you access to certain data sources, and in Power BI Free does not include the sharing capabilities. And so Power BI Free would be ideal for personal use, for somebody who wants to create Power BI content, publish that into the service so that way they can access it from their mobile devices. Power BI Pro gives you all of the features, all of the capabilities that Power BI has to offer. So it gives you larger capacity. You have the 10 gig per workspace and the 10 gig per app workspace. It gives you access to all of the different data sources. You have the increased data refresh rates, and you have full dashboard sharing and report publishing and collaboration, so you can share directly with other users. You can share into app workspaces, and other people that are members of that app workspace would have access to that content. Okay, so that's what you currently have today. Now this is all changing with Power BI Premium. With Power BI Premium, you have much larger increased capacity and performance. So you get increased capacity limits, you get performance enhancements, and this allows you to distribute your content without requiring per user licensing. This also gives you the on-prem report distribution through the Power BI report server, and we already talked about that. Now, some things are changing here with the future licensing, and you probably have seen some of these notifications in blog posts about this. With Power BI Pro, there's going to be no changes. Power BI Desktop, there's going to be no changes. But with the free, they're increasing the performance to be on par with Pro, so that's really nice. They're also giving you access to all data sources with the free user. So if you're a free user that currently uses Power BI for your own personal, those are all really good. That's all really good news for you. Power BI Free is going to become really Power BI for the individual user. So there's going to be no dashboard sharing capabilities within Power BI Free. So if you need access to the sharing features, Power BI Pro is going to be the service, the Power BI service to go with for you. Or if you're a user that needs access to Power BI content, but you're not creating content, then maybe Power BI Premium is a good use case for you. All right. So just to recap, Power BI Desktop it's free report free report authoring and ad hoc data exploration on your local machine. Power BI Free is quick, easy to use self-service analytics for personal use. This is also licensed by user. So if you had 10,000 users at your organization that all wanted to do Power BI sort of on their own, you could give them all the Power BI Free licenses. Power BI Pro is quick and easy self-service analytics for users that need to collaborate with other members of the organization, need to share dashboards, need to be able to do analysis and report publishing. This is also licensed by user. Okay. Power BI Premium, licensed by capacity. It's an add-on to Power BI Pro for projects that require large-scale data, demanding performance, and the ability to distribute content without requiring per-user licensing. And this also includes Power BI Embedded. So you notice here Power BI Desktop by user, licensed by user, Free is licensed by user, Pro is licensed by user, Premium is licensed by capacity. And so I think this makes Power BI Premium the ideal vehicle for distributing your Power BI content to large numbers of users that would need read access to your Power BI content. And we're talking about users that don't need to create and share. They just want to log in and look at their content. If you've got a lot of those types of users, I think that makes Power BI Premium an ideal tool. Now let's talk about a scenario here. Okay, so we've got a company that has 10,000 employees across multiple divisions, and each division, they have their own different BI goals. They've got different requirements, and you guys know how that goes. And because they have different goals and different requirements, they each have their own licensing requirements to achieve those goals. And so we've got this imaginary HR division. They've already purchased Power BI Pro standalone licenses for 500 of their users, right? But they have a requirement to extend read access to the reports through the organization. And so the HR division decides, you know what, we're going to purchase Power BI Premium so that we can give read access to some of these reports and some of these dashboards across the entire organization. Now, when they purchase Power BI Premium, this also means that they get Power BI Report Server, and now they have the ability to extend hybrid capabilities, including on-prem report publishing, or in the cloud through the premium nodes. This way, the HR team can deploy and distribute these interactive reports completely within the boundaries of the organization's firewall. All right, so that's the HR group within this company, right? Now the finance team comes along, and they're actively working on analyzing several really large data sets in advance of, say like an earnings announcement that might be coming up, and they need unthrottled and isolated capacity to manage these workloads. Because the finance division has all of their 5,000 employees covered with Office 365 E5, they don't need to purchase standalone Power BI Pro licenses. So they've got 5,000 users that are using Power BI Pro basically. With Power BI Premium, they can customize the capacity based on whatever unique set of requirements they happen to have for their Power BI application. They can purchase their own dedicated capacity and control the users and the content they serve and the SLA. Now, the rest of the company does not have the requirement for any of their employees to create or publish Power BI content. They don't need to create, they don't need to publish, they don't need to share. They just need to be able to log in and look at Power BI content that either the HR group is sharing with them or the finance group is sharing with them. Because of that, they don't need to be licensed. They can, no additional licenses are required for the rest of the company. They're all covered to access the Power BI content that is deployed to those premium nodes. Power BI Premium becomes the vehicle for us to share all of our Power BI content to large amounts of users without having to license those individual users. All right, so the future. Here's the roadmap. May 3rd, we had the Power BI Premium announcement, so it's been almost 3 weeks. June 2017 is when we're looking at Power BI Premium general availability. Okay, so they've late Q2 of 2017, and that's next month, right? So we've only got like a month left in May. So June 2017, Power BI Premium is going to be generally available sometime next month. Don't know what day, but it's going to be sometime next month. And then in the future, there will be additional features and updates available. So let's talk about what features will be available at GA, and then what features can we expect to be released sometime in the future after GA. All right, noisy neighbor isolation. This is a capability that you're going to have at launch. That's really the whole value proposition of Power BI Premium, right, is having your own dedicated capacity. This lets you eliminate some of that noisy neighbor type of stuff, right? The query performance of your reports and dashboards is now protected because you're using your own dedicated capacity. Huge data sets can now be stored within Power BI Premium. With Power BI Premium, you're freed from the standard user quotas of Power BI. So previously, had 10 gig per Power BI Pro license in your tenant. With Power BI Premium, you get up to 100 terabytes of storage for each capacity you provision. So much more storage capacity. You also get higher data refresh rates. This is going to be available at launch as well. With the increased data refresh frequency limits in Power BI Premium, you go from being able to refresh your data sets 8 times per day to 48 times per day. So the standard limits on refresh is gone, and now you can have your data sets refreshed on even a minute-based schedule. And this is a really great way to ensure that your users are always seeing the latest content. Oops, let me erase my ink. All right. Also, you're going to have larger data sets. This is not going to be available at launch, so all the ones with the asterisks there are not available at launch. But you're going to have an increased limitation on the size of your data sets. So you're going to be able to go to 50 gigs of data or more. And in the future, there's going to be even a capability for even larger data sets. So it's going to move even beyond 50 gigs of data per data model. You're also going to have the ability to have incremental refresh, and so I know that's one of the big things that people have been clamoring about with Power BI is let's have the capabilities to do incremental refreshes. With Power BI Premium, you're going to be able to have incremental refreshes, so you can leave your static data or your unchanging data untouched, and you can process only your hot or your volatile data that is continually updating. You can also pin data sets into memory to enable faster report access. And so currently the way that data sets sort of work in Power BI is that, you know, if a data set stands idle for a certain amount of time, it gets deprovisioned from memory and goes back to storage. And so what that means is when a user goes in and they go to look at that report, there's sort of a little bit of latency there, right, while that data model gets loaded up into memory before those reports can be rendered. With Power BI Premium, you'll be able to take data sets and pin them into memory so that way that never happens. And so that way when your users are logging in for the first time, they're going to have access to those reports right out the door without latency there. You can also have dedicated refresh nodes. This is also not going to be available or a feature available at general availability, but allows you to set up a data refresh node that will handle your data refreshing. And so that way your data refreshing operations will not be impacted by your querying operations. So you can do your data refreshing on an individual node, and you can let a separate node handle all of your queries. You can set up read-only replicas. So if you're a global organization and you have Power BI users in different countries, you could set up read-only replicas in different regions. So that way when a user that say lives in the UK, when they log in, they could hit the read-only replica that is deployed into a data center that is closest to them. And this gives you the geographic distribution. Capacities are going to be able to be provisioned in any of the data centers worldwide where Power BI is available. Now all of the lines there that have the asterisks are features that are not going to be available at launch, but these are things on the roadmap. Just keep in mind that the roadmap changes. All right, well, we've got a few minutes here. I just wanted to share a couple of things with you. I've got these resources here are available in the slide deck. If you're interested in download the slide deck, I have published it here on my blog. You just go to sqldusty.com. Right here, what is Power BI Premium? Click that link, and that'll take you to the blog post where you can download the slide deck. But without further ado, I think we'll open it up to questions here. We've got a few minutes of questions. So I'd like to thank Pragmatic Works for hosting this, and thanks, Erica, for doing a great job.
Awesome. Thank you, Dustin. I'm going to pick out some questions here for you to answer in these last 5 minutes. So I see here in Power BI Report Server, can you also deploy Power Pivot models, or is it just Power BI reports and SSRS reports?
So you can think of Power BI Report Server as basically everything that you can currently do with reporting services plus Power BI reports. Now, one of the things that they changed in reporting services was that you could take an Excel document and upload that into the report server and then use reporting services sort of wrap your security framework around those documents. And so you could take a Power Pivot model that was in an Excel document, publish that into the reporting services portal, and then use that as a vehicle to share that. So you'll continue to be able to do that. It will not be browsable within the report server, though. It would download as a separate Excel file, and then your user could open it. But if you want for it to be browsable within the model, you can always take that Power Pivot model and upgrade it to a Power BI model. And so if you're in Power BI Desktop, you can actually import a Power Pivot workbook, automatically upgrade it into a Power Pivot model, and then you could deploy that into the Power BI report server, and your users could access those reports directly from the Power BI report server. But a good question.
All right, next question here. Will you be able to leverage Azure Analysis Services from Power BI Embedded Premium?
From Power BI Embedded Premium, that is, I believe that's on the roadmap. I haven't read anything specifically about being able to do that, but I would anticipate that would be a capability. But I don't have any specifics on it if you'll be able to do that at launch.
Okay. Next question. Once a Power BI report is deployed to the on-premises server, do we still have the option to manage data sets as we do with classical SSRS reports?
So currently, in the preview, all we can do is connect to an analysis services instance. And that data connection is embedded as part of the Power BI desktop file. Now, how will that change before GA? I don't know, but currently it's embedded as part of that Power BI desktop file. Now, everything else with reporting services is going to work the same. So you have the data sets, the shared data sources are managed separately from the paginated reports and so on and so forth. But the data set itself, or the data source itself, is in the Power BI desktop file. Now, because right now in the preview only analysis services is supported, all of the querying and everything gets managed in your analysis services model. But prior to GA, all of that could change, and I would expect that to mature over the next year or so as they make enhancements to it and roll out updates.
Okay, and looks like we have time for one more question here. So last one, with Power BI Pro, can you share a dashboard with someone with a different email domain? For example, John at abc.com had a Pro license. Can he share with Mary at xyz.com, or does Mary also need a Pro license?
So Mary would also need a Pro license, even though she's on a different domain. Dashboards can be shared externally outside of your organization. So if you have a requirement to share with another user that is outside of your domain, you can do that, but both users need to have a Pro license.
Sounds great. And it is 12 o'clock right now, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much, Dustin, for today's presentation, and thank you again, everyone, for joining our webinar today. I'm not sure if you mentioned earlier, but just a reminder, we will be sending all registrants a follow-up email, including a link to the full webinar, because I know a bunch of you asked about that. We can also put that slide deck, we can include the slide deck in that email as well. We have a special software training session tomorrow for those of you that are interested. It starts at 1 and ends at 2 p.m. And it will be presented by our CEO, Brian Knight, as well as the Pragmatic Works software development team. So you can feel free to register for this free training session through our website, pragmaticworks.com. So tomorrow in that session, our team will be reviewing the top 5 recently released features and updates from the Pragmatic Works software suites. So if you guys are interested in that, feel free to join us tomorrow. If not, we do offer free training sessions every Tuesday at 11 o'clock. So thanks again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you for another free training session.